Hello, and welcome to the New York State Archives webinar module series on records management spring cleaning, a family of short presentations providing practical guidance and actions you can take to strengthen and advance your records management and archival programs. This module's topic is Records Disposition Days. My name is Dennis Riley, and I will be your presenter. Do these images look familiar? Do they fill you with a sense of dread and overwhelm? Do you just want to crawl back under the covers and pretend records management isn't important? If so, then you're in the right place. Take a deep breath because no problem is insurmountable. Let's face it, records management gets a bad rap. I often encounter at least 4 perceptions that lead to records not being managed. However, there are corresponding counterpoints which prove these perceptions wrong, or at the very least, misguided. First, there is a perception that records don't need to be managed. After all, what is the real risk if records aren't managed well, when there is real work to be done? However, there are inherent risks in not considering the records management implications of our day-to-day activity, whether for freedom of information purposes, litigation, or effectiveness of daily business operations. If you are creating records but not managing them, and especially if you're not disposing of them when you can, you're simply setting yourself up for a headache. It's harder to visualize this with electronic records, but the risks are the same. Second, there is a perception that records management adds to our workload, which I think is just utter nonsense. As public employees or public officials, we are expected to manage the records we create and receive to document our official functions, activities, and decisions. It's part of what we sign up for. And I argue that good records management is instinctual rather than one more thing. Whether we manage records well, which is to say efficiently and effectively, really determines how much of a burden it is. And if we are not routinely disposing of records which have met their retention periods, then we are indeed increasing our burden. The goal is to develop practices and systems that make managing records part of your regular workflow. Third, what are records and how do I know I need to manage them? Knowing some basic best practices is the first step on getting a handle on your records issues. And the State Archives offers a wealth of other resources to help you understand what constitutes a government record subject to retention and disposition requirements. So if you're unsure, contact us so we can support your efforts. And finally, records, especially electronic records, are hard to manage. Well, yes and no. Records management does require thought, effort, and resources. But doing nothing is certainly not a winning approach. Left unchecked and unmanaged, there are real headaches and costs. And this last point is really where regular disposition activity comes in and can resolve the 3 other obstacles. Regular, routine disposition of records leads to greater efficiency and long-term cost savings. If you are only keeping what you need to keep, you have less to manage, retrieval of records is improved, responses to freedom of information requests or legal discovery is more efficient, staff time is freed up, and you will save money and space when it comes to storage. It is a fallacy that electronic records don't cost money and don't take up space. While storage and access issues are different for electronic records, left unchecked and unmanaged, electronic records can result in significant headaches and costs. Adhering to the retention schedule also helps identify records that have permanent value. Now, statistics vary, but we often like to say only about 3 to 5% of government records are ever deemed permanent, which means that 95% of your records are likely to have a fixed lifespan. Routinely adhering to the schedule will make your work easier and allow you to devote finite resources just to the records you need to maintain. And this is where Records Disposition Day can come into play. Again, we offer a variety of resources, training, and publications that address many of the mechanics of retention and disposition. So I'm not going to address those details here. But I do want to advocate for regular routine disposition, and one strategy to ensure this happens is to institute an annual day or even a more frequent occurrence for staff to focus on disposal of records. This is really a simple concept. Pick a day to set aside to focus on records disposition and keep that focus for that day. One day out of 365. Depending on the size or nature of your government entity, you can do this across your organization, or you can implement it just for your office or department. Whatever your approach, make sure you involve and coordinate any disposition with your official records management officer. It's important to document disposal activity, such as with a destruction authorization form, to ensure disposal is in accordance with the appropriate retention schedules. And records management officers need to sign off on such forms. RMOs are also helpful in coordinating any resources you might require as part of your disposition efforts. For example, depending on the volume of records to be disposed, RMOs often arrange for a shredding vendor to carry out the actual destruction of materials. If you are going to do this enterprise-wide, you want to get executive leadership to endorse and support your efforts. A directive from senior executives will communicate that records disposition is important to the efficient and effective operations of your organization. Management support at all levels is always crucial to any endeavor and can make the difference between success and something else. Also, management sets the tone for everyone else as to whether disposition is a priority. You may want to plan with a core group in order to create greater buy-in and make disposition less of an individual burden. This will help in coordinating any resources as well as in communicating to all staff the objectives and expectations for a disposition day. If you are doing this across your government entity, this is where a records advisory body is one approach that can marshal an organization to support such an event. Likewise, having records liaisons in each office or department can also help garner support for efficient routine disposition. A specific time or day to focus on disposition will also help foster buy-in from rank and file staff. If everyone is in on it, then everyone has a stake in its success. Keep in mind, records disposition is not and cannot be one person's responsibility. It has to be a team goal if you hope to achieve measurable progress. In addition to picking a specific day to focus on disposition, you may decide to focus on a specific set of records, such as a specific series or a functional set of records. Likewise, don't forget that this includes electronic records, not just paper records. So if you have an unwieldy email account or a network drive that resembles an untamed wilderness, you can choose to devote your disposition day to addressing those problem areas. And this is where getting support and involvement of your information technology staff can be a great asset. The goal at the end of the day is not necessarily to solve all your records management problems. If only we could do that in one day. But rather, the goal is to make incremental or continual progress. Obviously, this will depend on the size of your organization and the state of your records to begin with. But over time, you will see tangible improvements. Additionally, records disposition will become second nature to your organization rather than a headache or a hassle. Finally, don't forget to make it fun. This doesn't have to be a drag. I don't mean to suggest literally building a bonfire and enjoying a round of s'mores, though I suppose you could do that. But there are ways to make disposition less of a chore. One place I worked, which was very much a suit and tie environment, we declared an annual Blue Jeans Day so that staff could relax and get down to the business of records disposal. Another place Executives would supply pizza or ice cream midday to rally staff in their efforts. And I know of at least one town that shuts down their offices, starts the day with an all-hands meeting, and supplies them with coffee, bagels, and other baked goods to start the day off right, as well as to keep their blood sugar and caffeine levels elevated to accomplish the task at hand. A quick word about disposal and records destruction. State law does not specify a destruction method for most records. However, you should destroy confidential or sensitive records in a way that ensures their total illegibility. To select a method of destruction, you should carefully evaluate the nature and content of the records to be destroyed, any local environmental restrictions, and the availability of equipment and staff. Some questions you might want to consider are whether the records are confidential, what is the quantity of records to be destroyed, what are their physical composition and characteristics, do the records contain numerous fasteners such as binder clips or 3-ring binders, do you have space, equipment, or staff for an on-site destruction program, or is it more efficient and economical to use an outside vendor? And if you use a third-party vendor, are you going to have them perform destruction on-site, or are you going to allow them to take records off-site for the destruction? All of these are common sense questions, I think. I always advocate for complete destruction of physical records, either through incineration, shredding, or recycling. The goal is to reduce materials to a particle size which, with reasonable assurance, ensures that reconstruction is unlikely. The most thorough destruction lessens your need to question whether particular sets of records contain sensitive information. Regarding electronic records, keep in mind simply deleting files does not destroy them. This is where developing policies and procedures with your information technology staff is important. For example, you can erase or degauss and reuse electronic storage. Destruction of records can also be very difficult since copies of a single file may reside in numerous locations. And for state agencies and local governments within or near the capital district, you can also use the State Archives waste paper recycling contract. This contract provides for the secure disposal and recycling of bulk quantities of obsolete paper records. Contact us if you want to explore this option and determine whether it is a cost-effective option for your organization. I want to emphasize why routine records disposal is important and why or how records disposition days fit into your records management program and the benefits that can accrue from them. First and foremost, it's to control the growth of records. Despite decades of electronic records, the amount of paper in our offices continues to grow and escalate, and the growth of electronic records is, frankly, exponential. An effective records disposition program thus stabilizes the growth of records in all formats, which results in reducing operating costs. Record keeping requires administrative dollars for equipment, space, and staffing to maintain any organized filing system. It will also help improve efficiency and productivity because time spent searching for records is ultimately non-productive. The fewer records you have will enhance retrieval with corresponding improvements in office efficiency and productivity. Now, a good records management program also provides an organization with the ability to assimilate new technologies and take advantage of their many benefits. However, investments in new computer systems don't automatically solve records problems unless the current records management needs are understood before applying automation or layering technology onto your existing records management system. But technology can enhance routine disposition. In terms of record-keeping requirements, the United States is one of the most heavily regulated countries in the world, and we exist in New York State. So a good records management program including routine disposition, will help ensure regulatory compliance and thus help minimize any litigation or legal risks. Failure to comply with laws and regulations can result in severe fines, penalties, or other legal consequences. Consistently applied disposition can reduce your liabilities. It's also important to safeguard vital information, those records that are essential to your business operations and your continuity of operations. The fewer records you are managing means that you will be better positioned to protect the information assets vital to your operations, especially in terms of a catastrophe or disaster. And routine disposition will also help ensure that staff, managers, and executives have the information you all need when you need it to support better decision-making. It's important to view your records as assets which enable better decisions and future planning purposes. Your records also form the core of a government's institutional memory, which is an irreplaceable asset that is often overlooked. These records document the activities of your organization, which future scholars and others may use to research the workings of our government and its impact on the communities we serve. Finally, there's this notion of professionalism in running government. An office with files askewed, stacked on top of filing cabinets or boxes tucked away in every nook and cranny, or even an untamed network or email system creates a poor working environment. The public perception of government or the image and morale of staff may be hard to quantify in cost-benefit terms, but it may be among the best reasons to engage in routine disposition because it directly affects the ability of staff to provide the services and activities to which they are entrusted. All of this is to say you can do it, but you have to do it. Records management, in particular timely, efficient, and consistent disposition, doesn't happen all on its own. And having a specific time, one day a year, is a great way to start. But you're also not alone. When in doubt, whenever you have a question or concern, contact the State Archives. We're not here to judge the state of your records management program, but we are here to help and support your efforts. So reach out and let us know what you need. Feel free to email us and the appropriate staff will respond accordingly. You can also sign up for our records management newsletters to keep on top of the latest from the State Archives. With that, thank you for listening.